This is not something that I wanted to hear. I was watching MSNBC this morning, and I forget what program it was, Bill Art's program perhaps, but I heard mention that the United States has taken in only 7 Ukrainian refugees since the sick, psychotic bastard Putin invaded that country. 7? The rest of the world has welcomed more than 3.5 million? 7? And so I went to MSNBC's website and I found an article from the Daily Mail. There were a bunch of subheads on the article, sub-headlines. Here are a couple. Ukrainian refugees fleeing bombing and persecution are being held in ICE detention centers in the United States because of COVID-19 rules banning asylum seekers. That's a Trump rule. Another subhead. President Biden previously said refugees from the war-torn country would be welcomed, quote, with open arms. Then we have Title 42, whatever that is, of immigration policy. It allows for the expulsion of migrants at the southern border if there's an ongoing health emergency. And that policy was put in place by the filthy pig Trump administration at the start of the pandemic. But the terrible part, that policy has been implemented and defended in court a number of times by the Biden administration. And the truth is, more and more, nobody has an exact number right now, more and more Ukrainian refugees are arriving at our southern border since the invasion by the monstrous pig Putin. But remember, Biden said he would welcome refugees from Ukraine with open arms. When I lived in Chicago, I went to a Ukrainian festival in one of the neighborhoods. This is back in the day, and I've done the same in New York City. And for that matter, the same in Cleveland. Yeah, I've been around. But the Ukrainian festivals, well, all centered around the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in those neighborhoods. But the festivals were just wonderful. You know, this whole Eastern European psyche, the dance, the food, the beautiful people, the creativity, the artistry. And we have tens of thousands of Ukrainians in the United States who are American citizens. They're Ukrainian Americans, okay, but so many of them are just first generation. Their parents came from Ukraine. So what is the problem here? Let me quote from this article. It says at least 5 Ukrainian refugees fleeing to the U.S. have been detained in immigration and customs enforcement centers, that's ICE, with one person moved to a detention center in Louisiana. As if these people are goddamn prisoners. Look what they're going through. What the fuck is going on? I mean, for real. Somebody in the Biden administration better make this shit stop. State Department data that was obtained by the Reuters news agency. I said this is a Daily Mail, partly Daily Mail and partly Reuters news agency and Newsweek. But this data reveals this low number of accepted refugees in the U.S., while other Western countries have taken in hundreds of thousands, millions. Look at what's happened in Poland. And then it explains that one reason Ukrainian refugees are being turned away at our southern border These refugees are getting to Mexico. God only knows what kind of a trip they've been on. But they're being turned away due to ongoing enforcement of this Title 42. It's from the coronavirus era, of the filthy pig Trump, which allows migrants to be instantly expelled, whether they test positive or not, due to this COVID-19 health emergency. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told reporters yesterday afternoon that Border Patrol agents on our southern border were reminded that there are individual exceptions to Title 42 that can be applied to Ukrainians arriving at the southern border. How many of these Border Patrol types, I'm not trying to condemn the whole bunch of them, but you talk about, in so many instances, what I've seen, what I've heard. These Border Patrol agents are not people capable or allowed to make a decision. I don't want to blame them, but son of a bitch, it's being dumped on them to decide whether or not to exempt a Ukrainian refugee trying to get into this country. Oh, come on. What this reveals, and this only came out yesterday, I heard it this morning, but it reveals that America's low acceptance rate of Ukrainian refugees it comes as estimates reveal the U.S. could be just hours away from another wave of mass migration if Title 42 is lifted, which it should be. What the hell? This was a dirty, rotten, filthy trick that the Trump scum put into place in order to satisfy his racist, white cult followers. There was a report yesterday from Axios that said there are 170,000 migrants waiting on the Mexican side of the southern border to cross and claim asylum if this policy comes to an end. No, they're not all Ukrainians. Many of these people waiting are just hours away from the border, while others are planning to migrate are within a few days' trip to get here. So there have been more than 3 million refugees dispersed among European nations from Ukraine. Our own Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, said that the numbers are staggering. Blinken said, quote, "This is the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. And see, Putin, Trump's handler, Trump's good buddy, the one Trump calls genius, Putin knows this. He knows what the son of a bitch is doing, driving millions of people into European countries. Oh, God, I just wish there was some way to kill this son of a bitch. I do. I'm sorry. I know that is not a good, healthy thing for me to say, especially being the progressive liberal that I am, but I'll be goddamned if I don't believe it. Blinken said he spoke with his counterparts in the so-called G7 nations yesterday, and they're discussing what to do to help refugees fleeing Ukraine. 7? And Biden gave Ukrainians fleeing the war the hope that they would be able to come to the United States, because on March 12th, less than a week ago, Biden said, quote, "We're going to welcome Ukrainian refugees with open arms if, in fact, they come all the way here." End quote, Joe Biden. But what the Biden administration is really doing is trying to find ways to deter migration and stop the surge at the southern border. And so it continues to use this so-called Title 42, which gives the government, the U.S. government, the power to deny somebody entry based on not on their personal status where it concerns COVID, but just on the fact that COVID exists on the planet. So now the questions are coming up all over the planet, really. And once again, we Americans seem to be the last ones to know this shit. But the questions emerging now are whether this country, the United States, will actually take in Ukrainian refugees. And we don't need to be reminded that many of these refugees are fleeing Ukraine to be with their families already in the United States. And they're just being turned away at our southern border. Okay, what the fuck is going on? Is there nobody in the Biden administration, all these goddamn progressives, so declared, so called, and they're allowing this to happen? 7 Ukrainian refugees admitted to this country since the filthy demon Putin invaded that country. 7? Let me give you some comparison of people, the number of refugees taken in from Ukraine. United Kingdom, 6,100. France, 17,000. Spain, 12,000. Germany, 18,000. Slovakia, 228,844. Hungary, 282,611. Moldova, 350,000. Romania, 491,000. Poland, 2 million. Russia, 168,000. Belarus, 2,000. The United States, 7. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.